This is one of the biggest clinical trials, and speaking to one of the specialists involved in this earlier, it sounds like there is hope that this trial could lead to a credible vaccine for the virus, that this really could work.
Indeed, Natasha, very warm good afternoon to you. I'm at Old Crossroads here in Cape Town at the Emma Vundleni Clinical Research Centre, where it's hoped that over the next 20 months, as many as 360 participants will be coming on board to participate in this study here in Cape Town. This is one of two centres that form part of the 15 centres countrywide that will be seeing this vaccine rolled out in an efficacy study. Now, joining me to talk a bit more about this vaccine and how it will be administered is Professor Linda Gale Becker. She's the protocol co-chair of HVTN 702. Professor, very warm good afternoon to you. I think the first question is, this is really a huge stepping stone towards combating HIV, not just in South Africa, but also in the world.
Correct. I think, one thing we've been really holding out for the last 30 years that this epidemic has raged around the world has been a prophylactic or preventive HIV vaccine. And we think HVTN 702 is a huge step in that direction. We have a lot of hope and optimism, but the research must go forth and we'll have to see what the result is in 3 to 4 years' time.
We've read that over 1,000 South Africans infected with HIV every day, Prof?
So we had about 400,000 infected in 2015. So yes, we, those numbers continue to be really very frightening and something that we have to combat, because it means we're having more people infected than we're actually getting onto antiretrovirals. And so our treatment pool is growing and growing, and anybody would know that really the most effective way to try and overcome this problem is to reduce the number of infections.
Now, Prof, when we talk about a vaccine, generally we're talking about a strain of the virus, and there have been questions asked, during this study, will people be infected with HIV? Perhaps we can just explain to us what this vaccine actually is and how it will work.
Absolutely. First point to make is that there is no way you can get HIV from the vaccine. So we do not inject HIV into anybody. We certainly don't ask people to go out and get HIV. The way the vaccine trial works, it's a randomized controlled trial. Does mean there is a blinded fashion to it, and half the cohort will be given a sham vaccine, a placebo vaccine. We then make sure every single participant is given the best standard of prevention. They will be given condoms, they'll be given risk reduction counseling. We'll really make sure that they do everything they can to protect themselves against HIV. We know, however, this is really difficult, and that's why we're still sitting with the terrible epidemic in South Africa all these years later. So we expect people will still become infected, sadly. And at the end of the 4-year period, we will be unblinded and we'll be able to count how many infections have occurred in each arm, which will give us a sense of vaccine efficacy. In fact, how well has the vaccine worked to prevent HIV?
Why South Africa, Professor? HIV is not just confined to not just this continent, but this country. Why was South Africa chosen for the study?
Well, we are building on an outcome that came from Thailand. So you're right, this is a global epidemic, it's everywhere. But when we got the results, and I'm speaking in a sort of global way here, the question was raised, which part of the world do we really need a vaccine? Where do we really need to see change happening in terms of numbers of infections? And obviously Southern Africa, Eastern Southern Africa comes to mind. And so all the efforts went into modifying the vaccine products as they were in Thailand and making them aligned with the kind of virus that is circulating here in South Africa. And so all efforts are to say, if we can get this vaccine to work in South Africa, then clearly we want to be able to move it around to other parts of the world. But this is a part of the world that we really, really do urgently need a vaccine as a matter of urgency.
So the trial, the study starts today and it lasts over the next 20 months?
We will accrue for the next 20 months. So we're actually looking for 5,400 South Africans across the 15 sites. We expect to have those all on board within 20 months, and then we follow everybody for 36 months. So it'll be another sort of 2 years after that. We're looking at results finally in 3 to 4 years' time.
And just very quickly, Professor, before we go, what kind of outcome are you looking for? What is required before this vaccine can be licensed?
So in Thailand, we saw a rather modest 30%. We really are hoping we're going to move well beyond that 30%, and we're hoping something like 50 to 60%. It's probably unlikely we're going to get 100%, obviously. So we're looking at 50 to 60%, which we think will be very interesting to regulators to license.
Thank you very much, Professor Linda Gale Becker, the protocol co-chair of HVT in 702, speaking to us here from one of the treatment sites, or rather research sites in Cape Town.
Thank you very much, Vanessa Poonah, live there from Cape Town at that launch ahead of World AIDS Day tomorrow.